This is Detective Explainer. Today, I'm going to explain a romance drama film called The Last Paradiso, which is based on true events. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. In the olive fields of an Italian farmland, the local mayor's daughter Bianca Schettino is having some sly little fun with farmer Ciccio Paradiso. Their illicit affair is in full display to Bianca's sister, Maria. After their idyllic time together, Ciccio kisses Bianca and reminds her to meet elsewhere later. As for Maria, she's made to stay quiet about this whole thing. There's a good reason why Maria has to stay quiet, and part of it is the fact that Ciccio already has a wife named Lucia, and a son. While his mother, Ninta, is preparing bread for lunch, she asks Lucia where Ciccio is, but Lucia is just as clueless. Later on, Bianca's father, Cumpas Schettino, and her brother, Cosimo, are monitoring the harvesters in his olive farm when his daughters bring him some food to eat. Cumpa instructs his harvesters to take a break, and he sends a beautiful woman to his barn so she can rest too. While Ciccio's on his way home, he gets confronted by another one of his mistresses, as she's upset with him for spending more time with the mayor's daughter than with her. In turn, Ciccio casually calms her down before taking his leave. Ciccio's eating when he asks Ninta about what she thinks of their home. Ciccio's openly discontented about it and even expresses his desire to leave. He then brings up his brother, who's living overseas, and how he doesn't write to him. But his mother assures him that they're always in his brother's thoughts. As for Mayor Cumpa, he's forcing himself on the woman he sent to his barn, while Maria can hear the poor woman's screams. That same night, Ciccio finds his friend, Vincenzo, in a bar, and together they observe Don Luigi underhandedly buying a farmer's harvested olives for a small amount of money. Unfortunately, the farmer's forced to accept his disgustingly low offer because of his financial needs, and he heads home, defeated. Just as another farmer approaches to swap his harvest for Don Luigi's meager offer, Ciccio interrupts them and begins his protest. He humiliates Don Luigi by declaring that he will buy all the farmer's harvest for the proper price, while stressing that he's had enough of the out-of-towners sucking their blood. In the face of Ciccio's protests, Don Luigi smirks and walks away, leaving Ciccio to spend the night with the farmers. When Ciccio comes home for breakfast, he has a serious discussion with his father. Sends you diable. About landowner corruption. His father, however, angrily tells him to mind his own business when Lucia interjects to express how furious she is since Ciccio didn't come home last night. Ciccio just walks away from the table while his wife goes on a tirade about his infidelity. He later meets Bianca at their secret rendezvous. With romantic French music playing from a phonograph, Ciccio tells her all about how he wishes to move far, far away with her. They kiss passionately under a large olive tree and slowly dance to the music. Cumpa and the brigadier listen to Don Luigi's complaints about Ciccio. He feeds the mayor's ego by reminding him that he controls the majority of the estates there, making him the boss. And so, Cumpa decidedly tells Don Luigi that he'll take care of the farmers' revolt. With Don Luigi departing, Cumpa asks the brigadier to fetch some of the farmers while he will deal with Ciccio himself. Ciccio is summoned that night, so his buddies are causing a ruckus outside the Cumpa's home. He ensures them that he'll take care of this, and with that, he enters the estate while his companions wait for him outside. Once he's inside, Cumpa asks Bianca to fetch him a drink. He then questions if Ciccio knows his daughter, and Bianca instinctively denies knowing him. The mayor proceeds to talk about his relationship with Ciccio's family, explaining that Sense was like a brother to him. Cumpa even knows Ciccio's grandfather, who moved overseas to live with a much younger woman. He then cuts to the chase and recounts how Ciccio humiliated Don Luigi. Unmoved, he boldly retorts that the Don made his riches by buying their goods for cheap and earning 3 times more than the farmers who have dedicated their blood, sweat and tears into their harvests. Ciccio goes on to say that like his father, he will never yield and he will wage war against anyone who stands in his way. Hoe their land so they will make the price. Ciccio's spiel is met with Cumpa's laughter, and he compliments him for his confidence as he shakes his hand. With Cosimo guiding Ciccio outside, Cumpa silently watches him and his friends walk away. Later that night, 2 farmers pretend to hitchhike with Don Luigi's car, only to beat the man up to a pulp and leave him unconscious on the street. Morning comes, and a beat-up Don Luigi files his complaints to the cops. That night, Ciccio sneaks into Bianca's room to wake her up. They silently traverse the estate until they arrive at Cumpa's barn. There, Ciccio confesses his feelings, his true love for her, while he caresses her face. He loves Lucia, and though Ciccio claims that he does, he says that Bianca is different. She's something that doesn't exist there. They turn the haystack into their love nest and let their hormone-filled bodies drift to bliss through the night. The following day, Bianca tells Maria about her wonderful night with Ciccio and admits that she left him sleeping in the barn. But when Cumpa instructs Cosimo to tend to the horses, Maria volunteers to accompany him so she can cover for Ciccio and her sister. She manages to keep her brother from finding Ciccio, eventually letting him leave. Cumpa later chats with one of Ciccio's acquaintances about what happened with Don Luigi. He pays him some money to settle the matter. When Ciccio and Lucia are at church, they have a serious conversation with Lucia, lamenting his infidelity. He tries to console her, promising that he loves her, but they want different things. A sin to Lucia isn't one for him. After some time, he meets with Bianca, who informs him that her father may have already discovered their relationship. Ciccio comforts her, telling her that he can't wait to see her in a beautiful gown. He hands Bianca a letter, asking her to read it. Ciccio plans on delivering it to her father tomorrow so they can depart to visit his brother overseas and continue their love affair. Later, Cosimo confirms his father's suspicions by telling him that Bianca met Ciccio, enraging him. He promptly asks Maria about her sister's whereabouts, so she immediately lies. When Bianca arrives, Cumpa chastises both his daughters as he disappointingly announces that he's been raising a liar and a tramp. But Bianca isn't fazed by her father's harsh words, and instead, she undresses in front of him. She boldly asks him why he doesn't look like he's enjoying the sight, when she knows for a fact that he enjoys making the little 15-year-olds take their clothes off in the barn. Cumpa looks away from his daughter's bareness, leaving Maria to cover Bianca's body and take her away. At his son. Afterwards, he sits on the stairwell of his home, contemplating the letter he prepared. The following day, Ciccio meets Cumpa alone in the farmlands to hand him the letter. Cumpa says that it will take him a day to finish reading before taking Ciccio with him to survey his property. While boasting about how rich it is despite the heat, the mayor begins to dig the dirt with a shovel and ushers Ciccio to inspect the soil. Ciccio follows suit, but suddenly, Cumpa would hit his head several times before castrating him. The townsfolk and Ciccio's family soon find his corpse displayed in the town square. Everyone grieves the loss of the brave man who fought for them. As Sands cleans up his son's bloody corpse, crying and mourning his death is all that he could do. Elsewhere, a mustached factory worker named Antonio is summoned by his manager to inform him of his brother's demise. Antonio is Ciccio's twin brother and their faces are the spitting image of each other's. Meanwhile, the police are arresting the farmers who are affiliated to Ciccio, leaving their families with little to do but watch as they're being carried away. Days later, Antonio arrives in his hometown. He immediately consoles his mother and sister, Mariella, who tells him about how Cumpa murdered Ciccio and how they want to leave the town now. Antonio hugs Lucia too, and while the family prepares for a funeral service, Antonio spends a moment alone watching his brother's corpse. Bianca attempts to depart from her family to watch Ciccio get transferred to his final resting place, but Cosimo tries to stop her. Bianca, however, threatens to kill him, so he leaves her be. While the town mourns Ciccio's death, Bianca stands by, grieving and unable to reach her lover. Antonio walks into town the next day and goes to the police station. He inquires about his twin's death, but since the brigadier's unable to provide him with the information he seeks, Antonio simply departs. Outside, a man snaps at Antonio, declaring that his brother is in prison because of Ciccio. Fortunately, Vincenzo is there and he drives the man away. Vincenzo then gives Antonio a brief overview of his brother's life, explaining that he'd been sleeping with a lot of women and causing commotions left and right when he was still alive. In the Paradiso household, Antonio witnesses Mariella yelling at Sense for not confronting the man who murdered his very own son. In truth, Sense calmly answers that Ciccio made a mistake and paid the price for it. Ninta and Mariella are left dejected while Sense tells Antonio that Ciccio had to be a criminal to face evil. He paid the price with his life. Antonio then informs him that he's leaving, so he instructs his son to forget about everyone and everything and to never return. Before leaving, Antonio pays a visit to the Schettino family to see Cumpa. Cosimo sees him from a distance and locks Bianca inside her room. The men of the Schettino family come face to face with Antonio. They insult him and banish him for the Paradiso family isn't welcome in their territory. Antonio admits that he knows Cumpa killed his brother, but the mayor retorts that it's better that way and that his brother deserved to die. Antonio's response is calm. He warns Cumpa that his greed will be his downfall and that there is a law that governs everything. But before he could finish, Cumpa interjects that he has the law in the palm of his hands. He warns Antonio to leave lest his father loses a second son before slamming the door on him. Escorts Antonio to the bus so he can return home. However, it is revealed that before he left the Schettino residence, Antonio had ambushed Cumpa in his stable. The ambush resulted in the murder of both Cosimo and Mayor Cumpa, and their blood is in Antonio's hands. Their bloodied garments are placed in the middle of the town to be displayed, while Maria screams in terror upon discovering their bodies. Seeing their brother and father dead, the two sisters are distraught. Over the next couple of days, Bianca and Maria seek the assistance of the police, but they have no authority over the people of their neighborhood. There is no honor in Cumpa's death. His legacy is spat on by the townsfolk who refuse to provide him with even a twinge of sympathy. It's a direct contrast to Ciccio's own death, in town. Without anybody else to turn to, Bianca asks Don Luigi for assistance in tending to her father's farmlands, but Luigi is too enamored by Bianca's appearance to pay her much mind. He strokes the grieving woman's tired face, but when he attempts to have his way with her, Bianca takes a fork and stabs Luigi's leg, leaving him in agony. As for Antonio, the man is working overseas again, though he is clearly distracted while trying to assist a coworker. The man injures his arm, and Antonio is perplexed as he stares at the blood on the ground. Back at home, Bianca is working on the farm, but upon seeing a particular tree, in her grief without Ciccio, she remembers the first time they met, when she was sat under the same tree with her sister. She sought his aid after being bitten by a snake, so Ciccio instructed her to close her eyes while he sucked out the venom. But instead of doing that, Ciccio was forced to go to the tree and take a look at the snake. He kissed her before fleeing. In the present, Antonio meets with his lover, who happily shows him the apartment that her father has bought for them. But despite the wonderful news, he continually feels at a loss after coming back from his hometown. Later, Antonio goes to meet with his manager, who just so happens to be his future father-in-law too. He tells Antonio to take a break from work, but since he insists on continuing to work, the manager shows him his gratitude. He also stresses that aside from being an important figure in the company, Antonio is now a member of his family, so he should look after his daughter. But when she receives it several days later, she just hides it under her drawer without reading its contents. The next day, Antonio visits a bar to get some beer. He strolls to the port, looking at the vast ocean and pondering the big decision he made. Antonio had left a letter to his lover and she cries reading it. The letter reveals that he is leaving her to come back home to his roots. Eventually, Antonio arrives in town, much to his mother's surprise. He later visits the Schettino residence and asks Maria about her sister. She leads him inside the estate and lets him wait for Bianca. There, Antonio sees a picture of a beautiful woman and Maria introduces her as her late mother. Stunned, Antonio hurriedly leaves the house and heads straight over to his father as he's doing his farm work. Antonio immediately asks about the photo in the Schettino residence, which is eerily similar to the photo he saw in Sansa's wallet years ago. Finally, Sans reveals a dark truth about their family and the Scattinos. He confesses that Maria is his illegitimate daughter born from an affair that he had with the Schettino matriarch. In tears, Sans admits that Ninetta knew about the affair, but she kept it a secret. As for Bianca and Maria's mother, the woman had killed herself. Meanwhile, Bianca finally reads Antonio's letter while Antonio shaves his mustache at home, leaving his mother in tears. Later on, Bianca catches Antonio in town, but gets surprised when he turns around, looking exactly like his brother, Ciccio. She asks him about the letter he sent, so Antonio calmly approaches Bianca and whispers in her ear that he will marry her right then and now. He asks her to close her eyes, and Bianca complies. When she opens them again, flower petals are raining over her, and she's wearing the dress that Ciccio had promised her for their wedding day. The townspeople gather around them while Sans takes her hand and walks her to the church with the Paradiso family in tow. In the end, Attribution lives the life that his deceased brother lived, as the townspeople's voice of hope and Bianca's lover. Don't forget to subscribe our channel and leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.